Good evening, everyone.
Sorry, one moment. Okay, apologies, everybody.
That's all right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sky Observers Hangout. My name is Michelle, and I am the Director of Public Observers Hangout. My name is Michelle, and I am the Director of Public Observing at the Adler Planetarium in Chicago, and I have some friends joining me here today.
Yes, I'm
Planetarium in Chicago, and I have some friends joining me here today.
Yes, I'm Hunter, Public Observing Educator here at the Adler Planetarium. Though I guess here at the Adler Planetarium is maybe a misnomer today, but you know, in general, here on the Adler Planetarium's YouTube channel. We also have a couple of friends joining us in the chat today. If you see the Adler's name with a little blue wrench next to it tonight, that is going to be Colleen. She will be helping us out, not only moderate the chat, but also take any questions that you guys have for us, feed any info that you want to share with us. So, you know, if you do have any questions or any thoughts for us tonight, post those along and Colleen will be sending them our way. We also have our astronomer friend Geza joining us in the chat tonight, who will be answering all of your really hard-hitting questions, some of the ones that maybe we need a little extra help with tonight, right, Michelle?
Yep.
Geza has all the answers, though, always. We know that. And then a special shout-out to telescope operator Dylan here joining us tonight on the stream. If you want to peek your head in, let's see. There we go. Now we mentioned we're joining from a little bit of a different place than usual.
My living room.
Usually you see us in much darker settings, right, out in the observatory. Well, we were battling some weather problems in the city today, so we have you know, abandoned ship to the further west areas, and the sky is looking a lot better here. So hopefully we can get a view of the comet tonight. That is, of course, our hope. We will see how it goes. I'm very excited that we're getting things started. I have never, the brightest comet I've ever had the chance to see since starting here. So this is for me too. I feel like I've never seen like a defined tail like that, and you know, gotten to see something naked eye at some point. Like, oh, it's very exciting. So I hope that our viewing goes well tonight. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
It is a lot clearer than I was expecting. I was getting rained on earlier.
Do you want to show people what the sky currently
Yeah,
looks like?
sure. So while we are still rolling through here, we've got the camera set up outside waiting for us.
Yep.
So we can see a nice clear sky at the moment. Hopefully that can hold out.
And that white box is just my electronic zoom on my DSLR camera, so that will allow us to do a zoom in a little bit. So if this is your first time to Sky Observers Hangout, you're probably going, what is this? I just stumbled across this show. Well, this is where we gather together to nerd out about the sky. We get excited about things like the directions cameras are pointed and whether or not there are and want to just watch the show, see what this is all about, go right ahead. If you would like to participate in questions, Geza might answer them, we might answer them. And we also love to know where you're joining us from. So I know we've got Colleen in the chat saying, hey, where are you joining us from? Let us know. And we will give your town a shout out if we can. Want to just sit back and watch, that's totally fine. But hope you get a chance to get out and try to see this comet disappears forever.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. So of course we'll make sure to give you all of the viewing tips that you need today. But definitely let us know where you're from. Let us know if you have any questions tonight, and you know, want to continue getting more. Won't necessarily about this comet in particular, but certainly some more comets to come and lots of stuff happening out in space. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel below. That includes all of the Observers Hangout. Includes a ton of other weekly content that's getting posted that gives you tons of tips on all kinds of observing that you can do. And also things that are just for fun as well, of course, right? Not just observing tips here. So lots of exciting stuff to see on our channels. But other than that, let us know where you're joining from. And while we wait for it to get a little bit darker outside, as you saw in the camera view, still quite bright out there, we also wanted to go ahead and start the show with some observing tips, talk about how you can best observe this comet, and also talk a little bit about, the long journey that this comet has taken to make its way all the way here to, its close approach to the a few days ago.
Yep.
So I switch over here. This is one of our, you might have seen if you follow Adler on some of the other social channels, these sort of viewing charts that we post. So you'll see that, the comet is changing position a lot over time. And, Michelle, you and I were both out last week on the 9th. What was significant about October 9th for this comet?
Yeah, so this comet was really low to the horizon, and that viewing angle allowed the sunlight to shine through the comet's dust and to temporarily bump up its brightness quite a bit. The only problem is it was so low to the ground that you needed a view right down to the horizon in order to see it right after sunset. So we didn't see it, but other people did. And so it is a really interesting angle that allowed a few folks to see the comet really, really brightly. In the meantime, in the last several days and about the last week, it is going a little higher in the sky, so it's up a little longer after sunset, but it's getting a little farther away from us so that it will be a little dimmer. So right around now-ish is going to be your best time to see it because it will be brightest. So on our viewing chart, we've noted approximately where it will be in each week's time. But notice over on the lower left, we indicate where Venus is. Venus will be super bright, but you can use Venus as kind of a signpost. If you can find Venus, that might help you find where the comet is. And we've indicated where west and southwest are. And so that'll help you to be able to find it in the sky. What might help is if you grab a pair of binoculars. So in a little bit, I'm gonna go out there and start to search for it. Sunset here is at 6:10.
A little sunset update. Go. Camera's
Yeah.
still running. Clouds are looking nice and pink. So
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
working its way down
So
there.
that's a good thing. But we need it to be a little bit darker before we can actually spot it. But we have a couple different pieces of technology that will help us find it. But honestly, using some simple stuff like a pair of binoculars should help you. Once you find it with just your binoculars, you can take those down and see where it is in the sky. And then hopefully you might be able to see it naked eye. We hope. Light polluted areas will have a little bit harder time being able to spot it.
But I do like with an object like this, sometimes we might be viewing things that require a big telescope to observe, right? With this one, really binoculars are kind of your best tool.
Yeah.
From a dark sight, this is a very big object. Its tail is quite long, much larger than the field of view for, most telescopes anyways. And so binoculars are really a great tool for this.
Yeah.
And, if you are in a dark enough sky, even naked eye can be possible. Now, I will say, I know that these lookup images are a general idea of where these things will be in the sky, but one thing I did want to offer is a way to get a more particular view of where these things are going to be tonight. So these are some screen grabs from a program called Stellarium Web. This is their web application version of Stellarium.
Totally free to use.
Totally free, open source program, which is why we love recommending it here on the show. And you can see it gives you a lot of good information. So I have this at a couple of different times tonight. One at around 6:30. I figured we would at least be live around that time today. And then another image for a little later in the night when it starts to get darker, a little easier to make that dot out in the sky. And you can see it's still quite high even at 7 o'clock tonight, still 17 degrees up over here.
And I know a bunch of folks might be asking, what should I look for? So basically a fuzzy thing.
Right.
So right now we've got some clouds, a handful of clouds in the sky. Those are moving out of the way, which is really good. But you want to look for something fuzzy. And the best way I can tell you to tell the difference between a star and a comet is comets are fuzzy, stars are points. Comets look fuzzy, stars look like points. In fact, where does the word comet originally come from? You ever thought about that?
Why? I'm not sure.
Comes from the root word is the Latin word coma, which means hair.
Oh.
So it will look hairy or fuzzy. So there you go. That will help you. And,
right.
and at one point they were called hairy stars. So everything was a star, either a wandering star, a hairy star, or a star.
Well, and it's not like the term is really so far off of still being called hairy these days, right? What do we call the long part coming out of it? The tail. Plenty of hairy tails out there,
Yep.
So it's not like these terms change too much. And I always mention to people, a lot of vocabulary in astronomy, you can kind of guess it probably. They're pretty straightforward word choices a lot of the time.
Yeah, and it's really fun because in astronomy we use a lot of Latin and Greek. You may be wondering, why don't we just use a lot of English? And the reason is that when scientists a few hundred years ago were discovering all these new things, they had this new technology, this telescope that was showing us all sorts of stuff in the sky. They went, we need some more words. And so we from Latin and Greek to be able to describe things, and so that we use a lot of Latin and Greek language to find this comet.
We had a good question
to be able to describe things like comets.
Exactly.
Sorry, I tripped over my own sentence. All right, go ahead. We have a question.
We had a question specifically about, these apps for viewing the sky and things. Stellarium not only has a web application, it does have a mobile one as well, and it is similarly totally free. There's also a version you can download on your computer. It's really a pretty open and available one. Should be available on pretty much all devices, which is why we like to recommend this one. And it has a ton of great information as well. I mean, even you can see here on the screen with this small screen grab, information on its location, its brightness level, a whole lot of different things. And the sky is totally changing based on your location. That's really important too, is, knowing where these objects are. They might not be the exact same spot in your sky. They'll be slightly off depending on where you are. So it's always good to get it yourself.
So go to Stellarium, and we've got the spelling of it, Stellarium, Stellarium-web dot, I think it's
That's a good question. Let me check.
.net.
.org.
.org. Oh, I almost
really
had it.
close.
You'd
Really
think
close. That was a
I
good
would
one.
know by now. Stellarium-web.org is that one. Totally free to use. It will auto-locate if you want, or you can set it, you can use their map feature to set to a specific location if the auto-locate doesn't get you in quite the right spot, or you want to look at another spot. Another app that I personally like to use is Sky Safari, and there are several different, I think, pay levels for that as well. There's a lot of apps, and honestly, I know exactly what Geza would answer. At least I think I know what Geza would answer for which app to use. The one you actually use. What telescope is best? The one you actually will use. So find one that you like all the features. Now, a lot of people ask, pay versus for free. Well, let's be real. You're gonna end up paying for something. So it's either you pay up front or you have to pay to unlock certain features in those free apps. So nothing, unless it's open source, is gonna be completely free. So Stellarium, Sky Safari, Starwalk 2, there's a bunch more. Actually, those of you in the chat, if you have a particular app that you like, please share.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah, please share so that others can learn from you. Because hey, there's nothing better than a personal recommendation, right? So you got several dozen folks.
Yeah, lots of people that can recommend.
Yeah,
Yep, exactly.
All right.
Little sky update. We're getting a little darker out here.
Yep,
Getting there. Quite breezy. But, I think we've given some good tips on how to observe this comet tonight. Like we said, binoculars, making sure that you know the location in the sky. And this comet has gotten bright enough and popular enough that all of these apps should have it in their database at this point.
For sure.
It is because it has gotten so much news presence and things. This is one of the brighter ones we've had in quite a while. This should be in any of them that you were downloading, so no problem.
And it's interesting because if we show the Stellarium screen grab, you'll see that full name of the comet. Sometimes you might have to search for the name, but where did that name come from?
Yeah, so we've got a whole bunch of different information that we can learn from this name that we have here, right? Starting with the very first letter, C, right? And this is referring to sort of the kind of comet this is. Generally non-periodic comets. You can even see that listed here on Stellarium right over here underneath the title. So what exactly does non-periodic mean? Because I see people talk about the amount of time it takes for this comet to orbit, you know.
Yep.
Well, what is really the description for one of these C comets?
So one of these C comets, it either means it doesn't have a regular orbit around the sun, like it's coming in hot, coming in too fast, and it'll go right back out. Or a comet that its orbit around the sun is at least 200 years long or longer. The orbits that are shorter will generally get you pretty much within the orbit of the planets. The planets may be out into a bit of the Kuiper Belt. So that's kind of the delineation right there. It's kind of a human construct, I think. So somebody would probably say, well,
I
that's a
don't
good
think
idea.
the comets care too
No, the
much
comets
whether
don't
they're
care.
C or not.
But then you could also have a P designation. P means less than 200 years in
right,
orbit.
so these are the ones that are coming around pretty frequently.
Yep. There's also, I believe, an X designation, and I think that one means a comet that was observed once but may have been lost. We don't know where it currently is, meaning they only observed it for a short period of time and didn't get enough data to figure out its orbit precisely enough to be able to then know actually where its orbit is. It's not like it's going to be coming right at us or anything. We didn't lose it that way. It's that if you don't get enough information over a long enough period of time about observations of where it is, you're going to lose it. So that definitely happens from time to time.
Yeah, and you know, to put this one in perspective, this is not close to that 200-year cutoff, right? This is an 80,000-year period that has been estimated, right? Of course, nobody was there to observe it 80,000 years ago, but that is based on the trajectory that we see it going, right?
And this very well could be its first trip in from the far distant reaches of our solar system. So this very likely, it isn't that 80,000 years ago it came around. It may not have ever
never been
visited
here,
before. So yeah. We have a couple of really interesting questions we'll get to in just a second. We'll get to the rest of that name. And we'll talk about some of the details later on about who discovered this comet or where discovered this comet. But 2023 refers to the year it was discovered. A refers to the first half of January in 2023, and 3 is this was the third comet discovered in the first half of January 2023. So there is a C 2023A1, there's a C 2023A2, and a C 2023A3. I actually don't know if anything that time period went higher than 3.
Went up to an A4 or something, right? Because it's only the first half of the month there, you know.
Right.
A lot of things in astronomy have these sort of, you know, almost very codified names, you know, very particular meanings of everything.
Yep.
The end part of this being the two observatories that did discover this comet. They discovered it independently. They were actually about a month apart as well. The first one translating to Purple Mountain Observatory. It is an observatory located in China. And that one discovered, I think that one was maybe the one that discovered it in January.
Correct.
And then they weren't able to get another reading on it at any point. And so it wasn't confirmed until later. They had lost that comet. And then it was reconfirmed in February by the Atlas Project.
What's also interesting is they also originally classified it as an asteroid, but later it was figured out that this was actually a comet. So we have another interesting question.
Yeah, we have a question here. Does the moon make it harder to see the comet? So a great question. You know, you might be thinking, oh, well, if they're in different parts of the sky, no big deal, right? The moon's not covering up the comet. But it really can have a pretty big influence. And, you know, we were talking about light pollution earlier, and it really comes from the very, very similar idea, right? You know, we have light pollution around us here on Earth, all of these bright lights shining around us, they make it harder to see things in the night sky. Well, the moon is also very large, very reflective, very close to us relative to any of the other things in the night sky. So absolutely, it can have a big influence on being able to see these dimmer kinds of objects. You know, when you're really going for a long night of, you know, deep sky hunting and looking for really dim objects far away in the galaxy or even outside of the galaxy, always try to pick a new moon night, right?
Yeah.
So it definitely can influence us for sure.
And is the moon out in the sky this week? Yes, yes it is. But that's okay. I mean, the nice thing is, at least the direction that we're looking toward the west-southwest, the moon is farther over
very
to the
far
east.
away from it.
So
right now, our
that
problem
helps.
is the sun is
The
much
sun,
more of a
yes.
concern for us. We can see here, I'll switch over. You've been looking at the Stellarium view for a while. Still some sunlight remaining here tonight.
But what I have been doing is can they see the camera settings as well? Are they able to see
Yeah,
that?
they can see quite a bit of
so
it.
I can adjust, so just to prove this
Here,
really is live.
Move us for a second.
Yeah, there you go. So I can move the exposure time. So I'm making the exposure time, I am making the exposure time shorter. So I'm just adjusting it based on how bright the sky appears right now. And as you can see, there is a cloud right there. But one of the things that I can do is I can adjust where we're looking. It does have a digital zoom. So there's a zoom on on another cloud that is far enough away. Really shouldn't have to worry about that one. Anyway, this is just proving this really is live, and we are trying this. This is something a little new for us to be able to do this. We would have done this from the observatory at the Adler, except it's raining there right now. So
Yep. This is, like I said, escaped west to try and find clear skies. So I hope you guys know we take this serious around here. This is a remote operation. We keep it on the move.
Yep.
Now, as we continue to wait for it to be darker, I think there's still a really interesting story to tell with this comet, right? We've talked a little bit about, where the name comes from, these sorts of things. And it starts to hint at like this long path that it has taken, right? And I think that I really love this image that shows us really the trajectory that this comet has taken and how a lot of the solar system is very organized, right? These big objects that you think of, all of our planets here, right? We're really pretty much all organized on the same plane with our orbits, right?
Yep.
But I think what's really striking in this is, how off-kilter this comet's orbit is coming from, right? Almost completely 90 degrees perpendicular to what our orbital plane is, right? And you'll also see that it's coming quite close to the sun, right? It came even closer than the Earth's orbit at its closest approach to the sun, right?
Yep.
And so imagine how far out it is going to have 80,000 years of journeying to be able to then make it all the way in here. And seeing comets like this and doing these estimates of where their orbits would have taken them has really revealed this very interesting part of the outer solar system that we wouldn't know about if it weren't for these comets making the long journey to the inner solar system, right? There's this place called the Oort cloud out here.
Right, and it's a theorized reservoir of comets that is located very far from the sun, incredibly far from the sun, but still in the far outer reaches of our solar system. But the only way we really can know about it for certain is when these comets come toward us, because we can't see them that far out. They're tiny. This comet is, about 6 miles across-ish, something like that. So you're not going to see something that small, that far out.
Right. Nothing has ever been actually visually seen in the Oort cloud.
Exactly. I'm going to go outside real quick and take a quick look with the binoculars. Can you hold tight? And keep
Absolutely.
everybody
Of course,
entertained here?
yes.
All right, I'm going to take a quick look. So I'll be right back. I'm going to go out the door.
Hopefully all of you guys are doing the same tonight. Hopefully you are able to have some clear skies in your location to spot this comet tonight. It can be a little tough when it's still this bright outside. Funny enough, we can actually get a nice little view of Michelle looking through the binoculars through the DSLR right now, where she is doing some comet gazing. And so I hope that wherever you guys are, it is clear tonight. But a nice thing with the comet, with some of our shows, like the last one, the lunar eclipse, that's a very time-sensitive thing, right? You've got to see it in those moments. With this comet, if you don't catch it tonight, that's okay. I look forward to the next week that we have here in Chicago, where it'll be
in front of the
really
camera?
nice and it was perfect. We had you on camera even when you went outside. Yeah.
Just prove we really are here.
Exactly. And so a great thing with this comet is that you do have a lot of opportunities to go out and see this. It it will be getting slightly dimmer and dimmer each day, but it will also be getting further and further from the sun, right? So you'll have more dark time to get a view on it. And I'm not, it's tough to predict exactly how observing will be each night, but it could get even easier in the coming days. Now, I also wanted to talk a little observing history for this comet here. So
do me a favor.
Yeah.
Go ahead and do that. I'm going to go check the focus on the camera.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead. So, while this comet is now at its brightest and making its close approach to the sun and also the Earth now, I think just a couple of days ago on the 12th was the closest it was at to the Earth, but still quite low in the sky at that point. But this comet has been making its journey for quite a while. We mentioned that it was discovered back in January and February, so people have been keeping an eye on it, but it was much, much dimmer back then. So we had some images kind of leading up to the current day showing how this comet has changed over time. This one was from one of our telescope volunteers at the Adler who works with us at the observatory and our other telescope programs. And this one was taken all the way back in June when the comet was sitting at just around magnitude 10 or 11, I think was the estimate at this point. To give you a comparison, this comet was all the way up into the negative magnitudes at its brightest. I think now we're sitting at around maybe in the 1 to 3 magnitude range. Magnitude is a scale that we use to give a general idea of the visual brightness of an object. So not always super exact, especially with something like a comet that has this bright central region and a more diffuse tail behind it. But it can start to give you an idea of what it'll look like relative to other objects that you might have spotted in the sky before. Now, I like this picture because it shows you a little bit of what to expect when looking at a comet naked eye. Now, depending on the quality of the stream right now, how high resolution you've got it at home, it might be tough to even spot where the comet is in this picture.
Frankly,
and this was
it's kind of tough for us to
even seeing it here. Yeah,
so
this was just in September, right before it made its close approach to the sun and started brightening up. And I did make a little bit of a zoom in on it so we can spot it more easily. You'll see. This, I think, gives you a much better idea of what to expect naked eye. It is brighter now than it was back at this point, but this was, a slightly longer exposure using a camera that's a little bit more sensitive than our eyes are. And so I think this is a fair representation. I will say I have not seen this comet with my naked eye yet. I have not had the opportunity to here in the city so far. Last one that I brought for today was one that I thought was just so magical and such a rare opportunity to be able to catch this. This was photographed by a quite famous astrophotographer. He's famous because he's also an astronaut. So this was taken from the International Space Station. You can see his name over here on the side, Don Pettit. Very, very well known for the pictures that he takes from the space station, also from here on Earth too, when he's not traveling around so many miles up above us. But this was one that I just thought was extra striking with it, over the Earth's atmosphere, a really beautiful view of the comet that he had there. Should we get an update on how things are looking? Looks like we've got
Yep.
getting a little darker. We had one cloud that was kind of in the way for a while, but it is getting better now, it looks like, starting to move away. Now, one other thing that we haven't mentioned so much yet, and we were, as we have these pictures of the comet pulled up and taking a look at how it looks, is talking about the different parts of a comet. What are we visually seeing here, right? So we've talked about the journey that it made, the region of the solar system that it's coming from, but we haven't talked so much about what exactly does make a comet a comet. We've made all these distinctions of, what's a long non-periodic, these X comets that we lose somehow, all of these different ones. But what is really making a comet tick? Now, I think it's good to start with that very bright central portion, right directly surrounding our little ball of ice and rock and all of these things. But actually there's a really great video that I wanted to show that I had dug out from some of the Adler archives actually on the YouTube channel. So if you see any old Adler logos, everybody, you might not see the nice updated one that we have on today. But it does have a lot of really great information on really what exactly makes a comet. And so I want to give us the chance to watch that here. So I'm going to turn our video off for just a second and let you guys enjoy that feed here.
We're actually going to build a comet with some of the ingredients in front of us here. All right, so I'm gonna add water here to this baggie. So Mark, what does the water represent?
Comets are mostly made of frozen water. So that's ingredient number one, main component.
I'm gonna add a couple of squirts of Windex here to our mix. Represent.
Ammonia makes up 1% of a comet's composition.
This one's a little bit different. I've never actually used this, but it has a very important sort of piece to this. Pour a dash of plain Coke into our mixture here. And what does this represent?
Here the Coke represents complex organic chemicals.
So I'm gonna add just a dash of just plain sand. I think I stole from the beach. All right, so add that in there. We have some very nice foil glitter. All right. And then some charcoal. So I'm gonna add about a quarter cup into our mixture here. And Mark, can you tell us what each of these means to our comet here?
Yeah, so comets, in addition to all of these ices, comets have a lot of solid material in them. A lot of rocky dust represented by the sand. The carbon represents all of the carbon-bearing compounds that you have in a comet.
So what I'm going to do now is pour, it's about a cup or a cup and a half of ground up dry ice. Dry ice is extremely cold, and that's why it sublimates at room temperature. It's frozen carbon dioxide turns immediately into a gas. So what does the dry ice represent?
Somewhere around 10 to 30% of a comet's makeup is going to be frozen carbon dioxide.
So what I'm doing here, I just grabbed the bag and I'm just mixing all this together with my hand. And when you keep dry ice under pressure and it sublimates quickly, you can actually pop the bag. So I'm making sure that it can breathe a little bit.
You want to see what a comet looks like? Think of something like this. That crud on the surface, that's all the organic compounds and the dust. And another way to think of what a comet might look like, most of the tail that we see from a comet comes from a couple things. The dust gets blasted off, it gets swept away from the comet by the pressure of sunlight, radiation pressure.
Okay.
So that sweeps it over the nucleus or head of the comet,
Right.
and you get this ball of gas around it, the coma, and sweeping it back makes the spectacular tail.
Where do comets come from originally?
Most comets, like Comet Ison, we think come from the outskirts of the solar system. In this case, what we call the Oort cloud, a vast reservoir of comets in the far outskirts of space. And something, just a little gravitational nudge, sometimes sends some comets into the inner solar system. Those comets, and this is why they're interesting to they date back to the formation of the solar system 4.6 billion years ago.
Wow. Okay.
And since they've been in this deep freeze, they contain these relatively unaltered materials from the formation. So by studying Ison, we can study what comets are made of and, where did we come from?
I really appreciate that video because, as much as I can describe, all right, comets are this big ball of gas and dust and rocks and ice and things, right? Like, imagine what exactly that looks like.
Yeah.
And I love seeing the weird, like, lumpy, dirty mass on there. It's like, oh, it's really that really is what a comet is, huh?
Yeah,
it's not as it looks up in the sky, right?
No. One of the other things that is really interesting to imagine is the interior. We know more about the interiors of comets because studied the last few years, especially with a European called Rosetta, and the interior of a comet is about the same density as cappuccino.
Oh.
Yeah. So next time you get a cappuccino, that's about how fluffy comets are on the inside. They're not. They look like they're just solid. And you could just walk up to it and smack it. But if you did that, the crust would probably break, and then pieces of that would go flying.
And that helps you imagine why so many of these, when they are making their close approaches to the sun after whatever 8,000 years of never coming anywhere close, right?
Yeah.
Why they often do have a lot of trouble breaking up, and this really gets to why it's difficult to predict the brightness of these comets, to predict how long they're gonna last, right? It's a tough, difficult journey that they gotta make,
Exactly.
and they're just a ball of cappuccino foam in
Ball of
the end,
cappuccino foam, exactly.
That's a tough trip for a foamy object, right?
So if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm just getting the latest position for the comet on my phone, and then
You can see our most recent update on our sky. which Michelle has diligently been working at, trying to pull off a view for this. You know, I gotta say we're awfully pampered when we get to be at the museum with the observatory there.
Yep.
Really does a lot of the hard work for us, huh?
It does.
But, you know, for a show today, it's not necessarily the best view for a comet like this, right? I mean, we were talking about the length of the tail in the sky, and some folks that were seeing it from darker areas were getting 10 degrees of tail behind it, right? So, I mean, this image that we have here from back in June, very small amount of tail. This is maybe half a degree would be my estimate, based on like the field of view of this telescope. So really, really quite tight, right?
Right.
10 degrees, that is not fitting anywhere close in our view.
I'm gonna go outside real quick and check according to the compass what direction, because I know where it should be. So now I want to get a sense of where that is with the camera. So I'll be right back.
One thing that you also battle when you're trying to spot something right at sunset is, you know, it's much easier to find things when you have some reference points, right? Other stars in the sky. Well, this is going to be one of the first things popping up in the sky. One of the brighter objects tonight, you know, other than something like Venus, which I know was asked about earlier. That's another one of the brightest things in the sky tonight, so it will be very apparent. That and the moon are really the first things that you'll start to see. Moon throughout the night, but Venus, as the sun starts to set, you could probably spot it with these sorts of conditions now. Comet gets a little harder because it's not such an individual light. About you know, in that video talking about really what is making up the comet itself, but I love in all of these images of the comet that we see is that really distinct tail, and I've started to see some discussion of an anti-tail since it has gone closer to the sun, maybe a couple of tails, pronounced tails coming out of this. And it's really interesting to think what is creating those. Why is the gas coming off of the comet heading in that direction, right? And so as we take a look at this comet here, you see that bright part in the middle, that's the coma. So you do have this big ball of gas that starts to develop and kind of hold around the comet itself, right? It is still all gravitationally attracted to each other, even if there are all of these other heavy things around it, like the sun, like all of the planets in here that it doesn't usually have a lot of gravitational influence with. Still a lot of stuff is gonna hang out right around that ball as it's off-gassing. But what is creating this long tail, and you know, what I think always assumed when looking at this, when I saw an image of a comet like this one, I would think, oh, comet started up towards the top of this image, right? And it traveled downwards, leaving this tail in its path. It's not quite how those tails are created. So as it's creating this coma, this big ball of gas and dust all around it, this tail is actually being pushed back by just the power of the sun. It is all of this solar energy coming out of it, this solar radiation that is pushing all of this material away from it. So actually, wherever you see that, it'll just be in the opposite direction that the sun is from the comet. And I thought that was a really, really interesting way that these tails were being formed that surprised me a little bit. You'll also sometimes see a couple of different tails if you get a really good view of the comet. I don't know if we'll be able to pull that off with a live view tonight, but maybe some of the, highly edited pictures you might see, all these astrophotographers doing a lot of work to their pictures, tweaking all of these settings to make sure they get all of the little details they're looking for. You might see a couple of different tails being created. One might be more gas, one more solid material like dust that's coming off of it, as some of those ices melt that are holding this comet together, right? You have all of this ice. It's getting close to the sun, much closer than it's ever gotten, much hotter than it's ever been, and that is causing some of that to melt, allowing some of the gas to come out of it, and some of the little bits to break apart as well. Sometimes if they get too close to the sun, they'll completely break apart, not hold together through the journey at all.
How you doing?
Oh, we're doing great. Talking all things comets, how they work, what makes the tail.
Awesome.
If anybody wants to see how Michelle's doing, panning around the sky,
panning around,
looking for something fun to look at.
So that is not the comet right there. That is a hot pixel.
You might see, that one bright little point. That is unfortunately a hot pixel. Now, what we are using, you might think, oh, if it's a hot pixel, why isn't it moving with the camera? Digital zoom to pan around. Another hot pixel, I take it?
Yep.
If you don't notice any excitement out of Michelle when seeing a point of light, probably a hot pixel, It's okay, Michelle. very familiar with where those hot
Right,
pixels
right.
might be.
One thing I need to do is we need a bright star in the sky because I
Right.
want to make sure that I'm actually focused. I could do some focusing by hand, but by eye earlier, but it would help to
Tough to get it exactly.
tough to get
on
it exactly
point,
when
yep.
you're looking so far. Anyway, we keep trying. It's all right.
Yeah, we're working on it. Had a lovely time so far in the stream. Let us know if anybody has any questions for us tonight. We would be happy to answer any of those. Well, I do see one question just came through in the chat. I can see Venus. So where should I look in relation to Venus? Sorry, Colleen, for stealing your thunder. I just happened to have the chat open, so I read that one straight from the YouTube chat. So let me get back to my image of from Stellarium here, because that will help with spotting it tonight. So I'll go to the darker one just because it's a little easier to see some of these details. So if you're able to spot Venus, which that is probably the first thing that you'll notice in the night sky tonight, it is a couple points of magnitude brighter than the comet is this evening. So you're definitely more likely to spot that one first. And with the brightness level here in Chicago, that shouldn't be too bad right now. So if you're spotting Venus in the sky, it's probably a little higher off the horizon than I'm it on this map right now, though not super far off, honestly. This was actually closer to the exact minute right now. Well, you can see it's hovering around the horizon, but you've got that in view. All you'll need to do is look up and to the right. Now, it's hard to really give an estimate of how much that looks like in the sky, but that is generally the direction that you should be looking in. And if you are seeing Venus, that is a great start. I would also recommend, logging into one of these. If you're in Chicago, then these numbers should be pretty close for you. Even if you're in, a different suburb or something like that, it still should be relatively close to the location for your spot. If you're somewhere else in the country, I might recommend, throwing one of the apps on your phone, getting the exact data for your location. But one thing that you'll see here is this information about azimuth and altitude. So the second number here, where we see 17 degrees, is the altitude. So that is how high it is in the sky. You can imagine 90 degrees is straight up, 45 degrees halfway there, 17, another little bit down. The other number, this azimuth, says 254 degrees. Now, this is a way that you can use to really start to get an idea of where to look in the sky. Because if you compass on your phone, it will actually display that exact degree number as you pan around and look. So you can get your phone out, pull your compass up. Here, I'll pull the compass up on my phone too. Let's see where, I don't use the compass very much, sorry, it takes me a second to pull it up. All right, so I've got the compass here on my phone. I can turn this around until it says 254 on here, and now I know exactly which direction in the sky I need to be looking in. Now, you'll have to pan up and down in that area, but that can be a really, really great way to get started, and your compass should be fairly close to the right degree. And I find that a little easier sometimes than, all these stargazing apps that you have will have a feature where you can hold it up to the sky, and it will connect with your compass in a similar way, show you what you should be seeing there. I think that can be a little counterintuitive for me. I find that I end up, looking in the spot in the sky. Well, I can't see what I'm looking at because the phone's right in the way. So I prefer using the compass a little bit more to start knowing where to look. I see that you were joining from Wisconsin. Honestly, it should be pretty close to what we're seeing here right now. Same time zone, about the same. Let's make sure I get this right. Longitude. Maybe it's slightly different altitudes in the sky, but you're not far from us, so it shouldn't be too different. But I hope that helps. If you have any follow-up questions about observing, about how that's going for you, please let me know. I am happy to answer any of them. But it is starting to get dark enough that some of you at home may be able to get a view of this comet. Now, I haven't talked to anybody that has seen this comet, particularly from Chicago, but I have talked to people that have seen this comet from some other locations, some darker skies. So if any of you are joining from darker areas, this eye, Wisconsin, maybe a good example of a darker location, I'm guessing. You may be able to spot this naked eye. I definitely think it'll be easier to find with binoculars, especially with still some of that sunset glare in the way. So if you've got binoculars at home, I highly recommend it. That gives you still a pretty big area of the sky that you're seeing, but a lot more chance of seeing these dim objects. So just to give you like a relative perspective with this image from earlier, you know, I imagine a binocular field of view, maybe something like this. Obviously, it depends on your binoculars, but maybe some pretty average ones that people may have in their house, whether they're for astronomy, for birding, whatever you like using your binoculars for. It's a pretty decent region of the sky and can really help you get an idea of what it might look like. Even this zoomed in area might be a really good representation of the kind of thing that you'll be seeing in your binoculars.
Spotting, but I'm not sure if that's it. So
Michelle's starting to get some binocular views, potentially. I guess this is still the camera.
Yeah,
Looks like it's moving around outside. I don't know why I thought, oh, let's look through the binoculars. Well, not quite, not how it works. But pretty close.
That's good.
Someone said, if the sun sets at 6:15 by me, what time can you see the comet until? So 6:15 should have been pretty close to when
us.
we had
Yeah.
our sunset today. So,
About,
you know.
about 8.
Right, so you should see it until about 8, right? So in this image here, this is at 7 o'clock on the dot for us tonight. Since it was around 6:15, you should be looking at a pretty similar sky to us. This is 7 o'clock, and it's still quite high in the sky, 17 degrees up, so you should have a decent view until 8. You know, it's getting darker and darker, so that will help you spot it easier and easier. And, you know, even still, the magnitude doesn't change much over the next couple of days, so there's still a very real chance of seeing it afterwards. And as a matter of fact, I'll do a little plug for tomorrow night. If you're in the Chicago area, we will be trying to get a look of this comet with our eyeballs at the planetarium. We're going to have some telescopes set up, and we will have those set up by around 7 o'clock. Doing our best to spot this comet. It does look like the weather will be nice, so come and join us out front of the planetarium at the Sundial Plaza tomorrow night if you want to try and get a view of this comet yourself. We'll also have the Doan Observatory open out back following, though that will be looking at something other than the comet, but something certainly very interesting. I don't want to spoil too much, because if I spoil it, you can come down and see what we got. So.
We're looking at Saturn. You need to come down and look at it.
Okay, it's Saturn. That's a pretty good selling point, I gotta say.
All right.
I see one other question in here that I didn't get the chance to answer earlier. Sorry, I am a little behind on answering this one. Just joining. Will I be able to see it from here in Clearwater, Florida? Not much light pollution because a lot of people are still without power because of the hurricane.
Oh.
So certainly, I am sorry to hear about the lack of electricity that folks are having down there, but it would make a genuine difference on the light pollution in your area. So it is very possible that you'll have some darker skies there. Now, Clearwater in particular, certainly you are not out of the running for seeing it. You very well may be able to see it right this very instant, honestly.
Actually, yeah, it would be lower in the sky.
It'll be a little lower, but it'll also be a little darker there since you're further east from us. So.
It would possibly be still be up. Hang on, let me check. I can check for you.
I can even pull up Stellarium Web here for Clearwater
actually,
if you want. Yeah, here I will cut to just our faces here for a second. But I'll pull up what the sky exactly looks like in your area right now, and where to look because Stellarium is just that easy. It's so. So I see you were in Clearwater, Florida. So let me pull up that location on the map. Sorry, I might have to give me just a second to pinpoint where. Sometimes the search on Stellarium can be a little bit slow, but we'll get a pretty good bit here. All right, I see Clearwater on the map here. All right, so Clearwater going in Stellarium here. I'll switch us so you can get a view of what I'm doing here as well. So we've got Clearwater selected. We're going to use this location. And we'll see, it is nice and dark here. And now it does look a bit different. I think this is interesting. It does look actually quite a bit different from our view here in Chicago tonight in reference to Venus particularly. Sorry, I'm trying to zoom in slowly here. we've got a little bit more vertical distance. I don't know how best to describe it, but altitude difference between Venus and the comet from our location. You'll see here it is actually much more in line with Venus's altitude. Might make it even a little bit easier to spot for you, honestly. And it is. This is a live view from there right now, I think. Maybe not quite. Here we go. There we go. That's a little bit. There's our exact time. So we're actually still quite high in the sky. It's all the way. You've got plenty of time to catch it tonight, and I recommend you go out and give it a shot. It is getting darker there by the minute. So.
That was an hour ago.
Put us back to real time here. It might be, this might be current time.
Yeah.
Sorry, time zones get with here. I'm not sure how exactly that works with the time, but if this is your current time instead of what I had previously, I apologize. It's a little lower in the sky, but there's always tomorrow night as well. And so you can always catch it then. There should be some good opportunities for it still to come. All right, should we get a DSLR update, see how it looks? Okay, you can go out and fiddle with things. We can see it is darker, but the challenges of catching something that is a little dim and a little low in the sky, that makes it more and more difficult for us to catch it. Now I love looking at I wanted to go back to this orbit picture because I feel like I didn't get to give it the time that it deserves, because it does really blow me away. We think of our orbit as being very nicely even and circular. We were talking about how the orbits of all of these planets are all on this same plane in the solar system, right? We don't really have that kind of consistency or regularity when it comes to these further out objects. So not only is this flipped almost perpendicular to the way that the plane of the solar system, of the main bodies in the solar system is organized, it's also much, much more elliptical, right? So these are not going on these big perfectly circular orbits. They're traveling from these far reaches in the Oort cloud all the way into the inner solar system. And with one like this, like Michelle said earlier, it may have never made its way to the inner solar system. And so this could be its first trip that it made here. Maybe it was doing fine in the Oort cloud and something disturbed it. That can happen sometimes where, a gravitational influence from something further out, even a planet passing or even, something happening in another star nearby, can influence these objects enough to throw off that orbital trajectory, send them going a different direction, passing much closer to the inner solar system. So this is very distinctly different from some of the more famous comets like Halley's Comet, right? These ones that make a pass every, I can't remember the amount of decades for Halley's Comet, but maybe 70 or something like that. I apologize if it's way less. Geza can help me out in the chat with what the exact period of Halley's Comet is, but they're coming around pretty frequently. We know when to expect them. That also helps us give us an idea of what to expect when it comes around. With ones like this, we've got no idea what it's going to look like when it gets here. We don't really know the composition of these comets before they enter the inner solar system. Once we get a view of their tail, we can maybe see some colors in there that give us a hint as to what gases that comet contained.
I need to switch the battery on.
That's why we always got a backup. Thank you, Michelle, for planning so good. Oh, great question in the chat. Is the planetarium always open to the public at night? I'm visiting Chicago next week. It is not always open to the public at night, but it is always open to the public at night on Wednesdays. So specifically Wednesday nights, we are open from 4 to 10 p.m. And that is also when you can join us in public observing out back at the Doan Observatory. For this season, now that it's getting dark nice and early, we're open from about 7 to 10. And you can come take a look through the biggest publicly available telescope in the city of Chicago. We do have some friends down in Southern Illinois who've got us beat with one of their outreach scopes. It's a 30-inch, ours is only 24. So we can't say biggest in the state of Illinois, but we can make the claim as biggest in Chicago at least. And so come out and visit us. It's a really fun time. And it's always nice to have the museum open at night. It's a great time to come and visit us. really appreciating the questions that we're getting in the chat. Please let me know if you do have any other follow-up questions about this comet, but about astronomy in general, or any of your other observing. I would love to hear if any of you have gotten a chance to spot this comet yet, whether it be tonight or in the last couple of days. I made a few attempts last week when it was at its brightest on the 9th and 10th. It was clear skies those nights. I knew it was pretty close to the sun, but I figured I would give it a shot, see if I could catch it. Went to a place with a really nice low horizon to the west. Never was able to see it. There were maybe some really distant clouds that were muddying my view low to the horizon. So I haven't gotten the chance to see it yet, because since then we have not had very good weather. While it hasn't been perfect tonight, this is the best weather that we've had in a good few days. So we are just glad that we've got some chance to see something tonight. A little bit of more clear skies than we've had the last few days. So hopefully this upcoming week of clearness that we have here in Chicago gives us more opportunities to take a peek. Wherever you may be joining us from tonight, I hope you've gotten the chance to spot it. I know I will be anxiously awaiting some opportunities to darker skies and maybe get a chance of viewing it naked eye. We will see. Like I said, always hard to predict. You never know what you're going to get with these comets. It's different every single time, because it really does depend on so many. Sorry, I didn't mean to switch the slides on you there. It really does depend on so many of these different factors, right? So when these comets are making a pass of the sun, you know, all of that additional heat and energy can make a lot of the parts fall off of it, right? It can break apart.
I'm definitely focused. So.
Definitely focused. Well, okay, that's good. We got focused on something. We've got the camera focused outside. That's a good update. It's a little tough to do that when there's nothing to look at that far away. You know, nothing here in Michelle's backyard is quite as far away as the stars and the comet, of course, which is basically infinitely far away in terms of a camera view. See, there's a couple of questions coming in. A couple questions about Adler gear this episode. I know that Colleen might have answered some of this stuff, but if you're digging our Adler shirts or want to check any of this stuff out, check out the Space Shop. Big shout out to our Space Shop friends. We've also got new stuff for one of our newer shows, Naya and the Multiverse, available in the Space Shop now. So this is a good time to go visit. The museum is exciting recently in general. All kinds of new stuff going on. From the Dome being open from 7 to 10 now, it's always nice having more hours of darkness at night, to Otherworlds, one of our new exhibits opening up. So lots of exciting stuff to get you to come down on a Wednesday night, hopefully including catching a peek at this comet tomorrow night. That is our plan. And just a reminder, if you weren't here when I mentioned that earlier, that is starting observing the comet tomorrow night. Going until we can't see it anymore. Should be about 8 o'clock, and we will be getting as many eyeballs through eyepieces as we can in that amount of time. Now I will add, you know, just like it can be a little tough to view it as we are here tonight, but it will be hanging right over the skyline, and without a lot of, you know, previous information on or experience on the brightness of this comet, what it really looks in the sky, it's hard to guess exactly what it'll look like from right in front of the Adler. It a shot, and Saturn will certainly look beautiful through the observatory telescope. Now, you know, one thing I wanted to mention a little bit more, I didn't get to show this picture earlier when we were talking about the observatories that discovered this comet.
If you want to focus it on like Arcturus or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, for the Sea Star. We're trying to get a couple of views here tonight. We've got one DSLR wide field view that I've shown you so far tonight, and then we're trying to snap some pics with our new Sea Star. If you've been at any of our previous shows, you might have some of our Sea Star images. It's a new smart telescope that we got that does a really nice job taking pictures of some of these dimmer objects. The comet was a new test for it that we hadn't tried yet. So I wanted to mention these two observatories here and talk about some of the kind of unique things that different observatories focus on these days, and how we have, you know, very different kinds of telescopes based on, you know, what our goals are in astronomy these days. So, you know, you might be much more familiar with some of these really huge observatories like, you know, the Keck telescope, or, you know, even space telescopes like Hubble or the James Webb, right, JWST. Some of these other telescopes, right, they focus on being as big of a telescope as possible, getting tons and tons of We're also looking at a very small area of the sky. Now, these observatories that discovered this comet are really doing very different stuff. What they are really looking for, and particularly this Atlas one, which is the one in the top image, is it is doing these sky surveys. So Atlas itself stands for, I gotta read this one off, it's a long name, Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System. It's the Atlas project. So the goal of this project, which consists of actually a bunch of different observatories, this is not the only one, but the South African Atlas location was the one that discovered this particular comet. It is surveying a very large amount of the sky, looking for these kind of new transient objects. So transient means that they aren't always the same, right? All these stars that we have, a lot of them, at least relatively speaking, right, in a short period of time, are not changing very much. Their brightness isn't changing, their location isn't changing, right? But something like a comet, it is changing in brightness as it gets closer, it is changing its location relative in the sky, changing with these comets, and that means that it can take a picture of the sky where it expects to see all of these very particular stars, and, oh, would you look at that? There's a new dot in one of these pictures, right? And so it is searching through these pictures, trying to get an idea of, you know, all right, where are these new things popping up? You might have noticed in the name, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System. The primary goal of this is to find asteroids that are going to come near the Earth so that we can attempt to redirect them. It seems like we might be able to do that now. So far, we haven't had any, you know, Earth impactors that we've been spotting that have been major issues. But that is kind of the primary goal. But it also catches some of these other transient objects like comets, things like that. And so it's a very interesting new kind of observatory. We have lots of these around the world that are scanning the entire sky, right? Massive amounts of data to try to get an idea of, you know, what we've got out there, what's changing out there. That can be from comets to asteroids to also, you know, supernova, right? Stars going supernova, new ones, you know, stars exploding that we weren't seeing, right? There's a ton of different stuff that they can be catching. So really valuable data to have, and it's something that these super duper major, you know, top observatories are not really able to pull off because they are looking at very small areas of the sky, and it's a very, very competitive wait list to get time on that. What kinds of telescopes are you guys going to use? I don't know if this is referring to here here for the live stream tonight or for in person tomorrow. Here tonight we are using actually one telescope, no traditional telescope. Think of where you can put your eyeball up to the eyepiece, right? One of them was just a DSLR. So that is a digital camera, but one with a quite sizable lens, something that can gather a lot more light than our eyes can. It still provides a very large field of view because this comet has such a long tail, right? So if I get back to some of these images, especially I think this one from Don Pettit really showcases some of that long tail that you have there. So a DSLR can be really great for that, for catching these really big objects that we have in the sky. You might be surprised at how large some of these objects are out in the sky. My favorite example is always the Andromeda Galaxy. You might think it's a whole nother galaxy, it must be so tiny, right? I can't see it with my eyes. Really, we can't see it just because it's too dim, not because it is too small. If you could see the entire Andromeda Galaxy in the sky, it would take up 6 times the space of the full moon. So it would be huge in the sky, but it is much too dim. With something like a camera that has a large field of view, you can collect more light, you can take long exposure photographs, and that makes a huge difference. The other kind of telescope we have set up tonight is a ZWO C-Star S50. This is a smart telescope. This is a sort of new kind of telescope that has just been created in the last few years. And these are telescopes not designed for visual observing, which is typically what we do in public observing, but rather for imaging. It is a solely imaging machine, and I will say for $500, it has really impressed me with its capabilities. It is able to take long exposure images of objects. It doesn't have a very big aperture, it's pretty small, 50 millimeter, right? That's where it gets the S50 from. But it is able to take many long exposure images and stack them internally. So that is something that is usually done in post-processing, right? and it takes a long time before you're able to see those results. It is doing all of that live, and so it has been a really, really wonderful addition to our sort of fleet of telescopes that we've had for nights like tonight, or also on observing nights out at the observatory on Wednesdays. Now, if your question, what kind of telescopes are you guys going to use, was specifically referring to tomorrow night's observing and what we usually use in person, we have a whole range of telescopes. We'll probably be using some of the simpler ones tomorrow, our Dobsonian telescopes, so large mirror-based telescopes that are pretty easy to move around. We'll probably use 6-inch telescopes. Again, we're not particularly small, tight, the view, lots of magnification. We're really trying to collect a lot of light, but also keep a big area of the sky in view so that we can see as much of that tail as possible. Now, the last telescope that I left for last, because it is the most exciting one in my personal opinion, is the one inside of the Doane Observatory. In there, we have a Planewave Telescopes is the company that telescope is from. And it is their CDK-24. So CDK stands for Corrected Dahl-Kirkham. This is the style of telescope that it is. It's very similar to an SCT, a Schmidt-Cassegrain type that you might be familiar with some slight alterations to it to correct some issues that SCTs had. So that is, again, a telescope with a big old mirror in the back and mostly a big empty tube. Little secret, that's what most telescopes are. There's not much more to them most of the time. And the 24 refers to the 24-inch mirror that we have in the back of that scope, making it the biggest in the Chicago area. Thank you. So we love having that one around to be able to use for all of our Wednesday nights. So we'll be spotting the comet with our Dobsonian telescopes, but taking a look at Saturn through the big scope tomorrow night. Just because the comet's going to be to the west, it's going to be over the buildings, a little low in the sky. It'll be kind of tough for us to catch it with the big telescope. I'm not really sure we could at all, honestly. And so we'll stick to Saturn with the big scope tomorrow night. Let me know if you have any other follow-up questions. My colleagues are outside working on trying to get a view of the comet for us tonight, a live one. But I do hope that the tips that I have offered have spot it yourself tonight, or at least have encouraged you to want to get out and spot it sometime soon. Sorry for the rapid shifting between slides, but I did want to come back to this slide here because this is right around the current time for here in Chicago. And this will give you an idea of about it should be in the sky. If you're out on the west side, you might catch a view of it. If you're right downtown, I'm not sure what the weather is like over there now. It was really stormy and awful when I left, but it might be a little better now that it's a few hours later. So maybe you're able to spot it too. The light pollution again will make it difficult. If you are trying to spot this comet at home, definitely recommend binoculars. That will help a lot. While this is the brightest one we've had in a while, definitely since I've started working at the Adler about 2.5 years ago, this is definitely the brightest one since then. But if you are an experienced comet hunter, have seen lots of different ones, this one's definitely dimmer than some famous ones like Neowise, or some of the very famous bright periodic ones, like Halley's Comet or something like that. So there's a really big range as to how comets can appear in the sky. And this one is one that's a little more difficult to see naked eye, honestly. You would need to be in a darker site, and you would need to know the sky pretty well to be able to pinpoint it. In binoculars, the tail should come out a lot stronger. And I've heard some really great stories I had some coworkers that were out in Utah this week, and they were able to get to some darker areas, and they were able to spot the comet, even get some phone pictures with it. With cell phones these days, you've got these long night modes where it can take 30-second long exposures. It really sort of artificially brightens it up quite a bit, and so that can be another really good way to try and spot it. If you're unsure where it is, try taking a picture of the general region of the sky that you know it to be in, and you might be able to get something honestly kind of similar to this image right now. This might be a little better than you could pull off with a phone, but not so far. A coworker showed me a picture they took just a couple of days ago with their phone. It was kind of similar to this one. When you zoom in on it, it's like, yeah, I can see that there's a tail there, but it's very dim. The coma still comes in pretty bright, right? You've got that bright central portion. of the comet that really stands out well, but the tails might be a little bit harder to spot.
Give me a second.
Okay, we are very close to having a live view. We got a little update from outside that they're starting to get it in view. Very exciting. I'm very excited to see it. I hope you guys are as well, because I haven't seen this dang thing with my eyes yet, or even through a screen that was a live view. I have only seen it after the fact through pictures. This one was taken actually very early in the morning. It was more of an early morning object.
We got it.
They have it in view. That's wonderful. Are you getting it through the C-Star or through the camera?
Through the C-Star.
Through the C-Star?
Are you able to?
You can hook it up here if you want.
Yes.
I can't bring it really any further than right here, but if you plug it in here, then we can get a live view. If we're already connected and getting it, it should work no problem. Oh, guys, what an exciting moment. Is a good way to...
After we left Hunter for talking.
Oh,
talking
I've
for
been
like
having a great time.
half an
Say,
hour.
hey, everybody in the chat, have you been having a great time hanging out with Hunter tonight? I've been having a great time hanging out with all of you. Of course, Colleen and Geza there in the chat.
There it is. Look at that. Look.
Oh, wow, that's a great view. All right, we can actually turn this sideways. We can get this propped up so it's a little easier for us. All right, sorry. Let me give you guys the live view as well. Here is a live view of the comet. You can see that this is absolutely an image happening right now. Very good work, guys. I've been in here, just doing nothing but reading messages and hanging around talking. So thanks for doing the hard work during this comet. Now, one thing I'm seeing is, yeah, you see that moving across the image there, a little satellite passing by.
Oh my God, this is so cool.
Now, am I correct in thinking this is just the live preview, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so if I'm gonna go ahead and start capping this. We'll see how this looks after a 10-second exposure. Good job, team. I've also got a couple of questions coming in. We have one question. What is this comet made out of? So comets are generally a bunch of random conglomeration of stuff, ices, gas, dust. You can see an evidence. Oh, wow, look at the view with second exposure. And that's beautiful.
Oh my God. That's so cool.
Looks lovely. You can tell this is the first time we've seen the comet tonight or any of the nights because it's been cloudy for many days. So we are just as excited as you guys are to get a view. Another good question. What percentage does it go down in luminosity each day?
Oh.
So it's not going to be an exact change every day because it really is dependent on, how close it is to the sun, I would think, right? So, it dropped quite a bit in the last couple of days from like last Wednesday or whatever when it had the, what's the word that I'm looking for? Forward scattering?
Yeah, I'd say maybe a fraction of a magnitude.
Right.
Each day. Oh my gosh, that is so cool.
Sorry, we're mostly paying attention to our beautiful C-Star view here. We're very excited about it. Is this seeing a line in front of it a little bit? That is the anti-tail, is it not? That's what I thought. So that is a little bit of... I mentioned the anti-tail earlier in the show. I didn't think we would catch it, though.
I'm gonna see if I can get it.
Sorry, I'm like leaning in now to try and get a good view of it. I'm loving the detail that you can see. Oh, my mouse doesn't point things out anymore, but if you really look in the tail there and you notice some of the stronger individual lines, like there's one that really cuts right down the middle of it, that is probably more of like some of that, stack fail, there must have been a cloud in the way. That's probably some of that dust leaving it behind, right? Whereas the much larger tail is a lot of the gas that is being pushed back by the sun. So this is like maybe a little flipped around from how it looks in the sky. In the actual sky, if you were to see it, the coma would be down at the bottom and the tail would be going upwards, right away from the sun. We've just got our tablet flipped sideways, so it's not it's not the actual view that you would be seeing outside. But what's upside down mean in outer space? There's no upside down, so that's okay. But wow, I mean, the tail is so much brighter. You got it in the DSLR too, nice. So much, you can tell we are not getting anywhere close to the end of this tail, right? I would estimate that we're maybe seeing a third of this tail right now, because it is still quite bright all the way to the edge of the screen there. Hope I did a good job answering both of the questions in the chat today. Person that asked about what a comet is made of. If you want more detailed information, I did share a video earlier. I'm gonna keep us on the comet view for now. but earlier I shared a video that you can still find on our YouTube channel. I think it's called Cooking Up a Comet. And if you look that up, it has like really nice information on the exact elements that are making these comets up. But it is generally, yeah, just a bunch of ice and rocks and stuff smushed together. It's not that fancy sounding, but I guess they're not really that fancy. They just make a very fancy visual when they get here close to the sun, and all this stuff ends up being left behind by the comet. Oh, that looks great.
Here we go.
How exciting.
I'll get you a DSLR image.
Yeah,
in
I'll
just
switch
a
us over to the
second.
DSLR in just a second. Oh man, sorry, I'm just admiring this image here. So the screen where we can see all of these views are over to the side here. So I was taking a nice close look. Well, I also have it here too. Wow, beautiful. Could you guys see it with binoculars outside?
I could not, but
so
now I know
haven't-
where to look. Actually, do you want to go? Do you want to try?
Yeah, this is just an experiment so we can do a better job of recommending things to you guys at home, right? So Dylan's gonna go out and see if he can catch this with some binoculars. Now, of course, that helps knowing exactly where it is, and the Seastar has a really good idea of where it's pointing. It's doing a lot of that work for us, and so
Check it
that
out.
does a good job of helping.
Check. Switch to.
Switch over, yep.
Preview.
Oh wow, yeah, look
See
at
that?
that. Now, so now you can really start to see how much tail there really is. What's the red cloth there?
Oh, that's the umbrella.
Protecting it? No, it's the umbrella.
Over our
I had to
table.
move it a little bit. That's what happens when you do it from your house. But, you know, I think seeing this image here,
You can?
Oh yeah.
you can definitely see with binoculars so close. I can't wait to go out after the show. But, you know, as your very committed and dedicated host here tonight, I'm not going anywhere, people. I'm keeping you with a beautiful view of this comet. But if we take a look here, right, you have that little bright coma right in the middle, right, the actual comet itself, with that bright sort of cloud of gas and dust around it.
Naked eye.
But then with this wider field view, you really start to get an idea of how long that tail really can
I'm
go.
gonna take a longer.
Yeah, sure, go for it. I'll switch us back to the Seastar view.
You can absolutely, if you're in the Chicago area right now and you're in areas where it is not cloudy, it is naked eye visible. It is absolute. I could see it. As soon as I walked outside, I saw it.
Were you able to spot the tail as well,
Yes.
naked eye? Okay,
Yes.
so if you're in Chicago and you know to look basically due west at this point, it should really be pretty much exactly due west. You can spot a view of this in the sky. It'll be pretty low to the horizon, but you can make it out. And so somebody asked, so when we're seeing a prominent tail, is that from the exposure of the camera? So when we had the DSLR view up, you could see more of that tail. Absolutely, the exposure that we're using will make that tail brighter, and especially with the Seastar here that's stacking images together, that's definitely brighter than what you would see with your eye. But, I mean, we've got first-hand accounts from Michelle right here that she is able to spot that tail naked eye. So it'll be much dimmer, but you can see, you know, it'll definitely stand out from all of the stars in the sky now that it's getting much darker out here tonight. So the darkness definitely helps quite a bit.
I'm gonna take a 10-second picture. Check it out. Oh my gosh, look at this.
I mean, that view with the Seastar is just magnificent there.
Awesome.
Now, I was wondering, I don't have a good answer for this question, Michelle. Well, we're starting to
With
get
that
some
little
glare there on the coma.
Yeah.
That might be just from it moving over time.
Yeah.
This dark line has been very distinct right through the middle of it this whole time. What do you think that might be? I have noticed that since our very first exposure. So I'm curious.
I'm gonna guess that might be it's giving off material, but not evenly over the entire
Right.
surface. It would be in certain spots and not in others. That's my guess. So, so here is
Very interesting.
Here is a 10-second image.
Oh, wow. Yeah, look at how long that tail is, right? So comparing
Yeah.
this, where you see how wide the coma is, compared to this, where it's much thinner, that tail really does extend down across so much of this image.
And you know what? You're absolutely right. It is the comet is moving.
I think that's what's
So-
happening with the actual,
Yeah.
with our Seastar image. Now I think we're seeing the comet moving against the stars. It does seem to be moving at the star rate, maybe?
Yeah.
If I zoom in on these stars, these look a little stretched. I'm not quite sure. I don't know. But I might give us an initial image that we were taking. Maybe start a new one off here. Get another live view, see how it looks.
I'm gonna.
Wow, look at between that. I mean, immediately
Yeah,
as went to just the preview. I'll restart it here. Oh, wow, what a lovely view. Maybe we started the show a little early tonight. It took us a while to catch the comet, but man, when we got on view, it looked lovely, huh? Clouds cleared. We thought we'd be caught in a... It was pouring down rain just to give some behind the scenes. When Dylan and I were driving out here to the more on the west side of town, it was absolutely pouring down rain on us while we were driving.
The length of that tail.
Yeah, that tail is spectacular here. It was pouring earlier, so I cannot believe that we're seeing anything right now.
I'm literally taking these one by one. So as soon as it's coming from the camera and it shows on my screen, then that's what I'm getting at. The camera's outside and it's plugged into my computer here. This is spectacular.
Just a personal question. How
Yes.
much time do you think we have until the comet sets behind trees? Because I want to make sure
Oh,
I
we've
go
got some
outside
time.
and take a
We've
look.
got
Okay,
some-
great.
Go, take a look. Take a look.
Okay. All right, everybody, I'm leaving you in the good hands of Michelle. I'll be back. We've got a nice sea star view. I'm going to go take a look myself, though, because I haven't seen it yet.
So there's a question. What is the anti-tail? So an anti-tail is kind of a little bit of an optical illusion, kind of. It's because the comet's tail has fanned out. And so we're seeing the tail kind of in the plane of the tail. And so when it fans out, if you saw it from the side, you would see this tail kind of fanning outward this way. But because we're seeing it kind of in the plane of the tail, it looks as though there's a tail coming out the front. But it really isn't. It's really all in the back. It's out behind the comet, or it's away from the sun, essentially. And so that's what an anti-tail is. So it's a little bit of an optical illusion, but it is there. It's just we're seeing the back of the tail kind of curved around. And let's see, so we're seeing the prominent tail. It is partly from the exposure of the camera. Yes, the camera is going to pick up faintness better than your eyes will. But seriously, we went outside and I could see it. I knew where to look, but I absolutely went, yep, there it is. I could see it with just my eyes. It's not as extensive as what you might see with the camera, but it is definitely there. You can definitely see a streak in the sky. So again, if it is dark where you are, and you're somewhere at least less than an hour and a half after sunset, then you should be able to go outside, face to the west, slightly southwest, and you should be able to see this comet. Did you see it?
I did see it. I could see it, even after, we always tell everybody when we're here doing our show, we're like, hey, stay away from lights for half an hour before you try to go look at any astronomical objects. Well, I've been staring at a ring light for about an hour myself, so not dark adjusted, and I could still see it naked eye. I could totally make it out.
Yeah.
Really, really awesome. And with binoculars, it was great.
I answered the anti-tail question and the one below it too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm taking I'm taking a 15-second exposure right now. Oh my gosh. This is
look at how bright it is in that. Wow. Looks beautiful. Huh?
That's so cool.
Really, really nice. Really,
High
really
five,
nice.
high five.
Yeah, high five. I didn't do any of the hard work. I've just been sitting here blabbing. So thank you guys for getting our telescopes all set up and taking a view of this beautiful comet tonight.
No problem.
Let us know if you have any final questions here in the chat. I will say while I was out there, it was getting pretty low in the horizon for sure from where we are. So.
Yep, my camera's busy. There we go. There is a 15-second exposure image.
Oh yeah, here, let me switch over to
that
that.
one.
Wow, lovely.
Wow.
Wow, look at the tail. It really does
Oh my
extend so
gosh,
long.
It sure does.
So, couple of questions here. Wait, isn't a comet always moving? Yes, very true. Very true. I don't know if that was referring to something in particular that you guys were talking about in here, but it could also have been, we've seen it moving its positions relative to the stars tonight when we were doing those long exposures, right? So yes, it is always moving, and it is much closer to us than the stars are, which are also all always moving, right? As are all of the planets and us.
But it is one thing that the sea star is doing is it is stacking one image on top of the next, but the comet is moving against the background star. So it is moving a little faster.
Exactly.
And so from one of those stacked images to the next, what the sea star, I think, is doing is stacking against the images, the images of the stars, not the location
Right.
of the comet itself. So,
Right, so it is moving at a slightly different rate than all of the rest of the stars are in the sky,
Correct,
right?
correct.
The stars are generally all moving across at the same rate. Comet a little different. You can tell because it's in a new location, night to night, right?
yep.
Sea Star still moving along, getting some great pictures. Another question we had, how do you draw the line between a comet and an asteroid? I've always wondered, and that's a great
That's
question.
awesome.
Because they do seem pretty similar, right?
Yes.
They're small rocky masses, things much smaller than planets that are orbiting around our solar system. They're often made of lots of little parts clumped together, right?
We used to think a long time ago that they were distinct objects, and there really is. You can have comets that have lost all their, we call them volatiles, the ices. And so they would look a lot like asteroids. And you can have asteroids that have ice. And so it is definitely, there isn't a fine line between what makes something an asteroid versus a comet. You can generally say that asteroids maybe don't have as much of those ices or have lost their ices. But we do see asteroids that do exhibit cometary properties. So
right. So like many things in astronomy, a lot of this stuff also was, kind of defined long before they really had all of the exact details, right?
Yep.
And so sometimes we find that maybe those distinctions are a little more muddy than we originally thought, right? And so this is one of those situations where it's kind of a scale from asteroid to comet, and it's very fluid, in between. It really just depends on what their makeup is, how much is it.
yeah,
there you
it's
go.
definitely doing it again.
Just
So,
eventually,
yeah, I
it
think
gets
so.
a little off from focused on the comet.
I took another 15-second image because I did a 20-second one, and it was streaking. The stars were streaking because my camera doesn't track. Oh my gosh.
We snapped tonight.
Yeah, we definitely need a shorter exposure one to keep. 'Cause
Yeah, maybe
one
I
that
should
doesn't
run
have
one
the-
that just goes for a little bit. Oops,
Yeah.
I opened the wrong thing up.
There you go.
Let me go back. We'll snag one more here,
Yeah.
just for a minute or two.
Oh my gosh. This is so
Oh,
cool.
it was lovely.
This is so cool.
Oh wow, and I am really impressed with the DSLR images. I did not expect to see such a long tail with this one. Have it so visually long, even just with those single exposures, right? No extra work being done to these. They are long exposures, right? Our eyes can't do that. Technically our exposures are, some decimal of a millisecond, right? Whereas the camera is able to take a picture for 15 seconds long, so really does make a big difference. But still, no post-processing that really brings out some of the details. And we're gonna take one last one of these pictures that is lacking the little smear that we were getting after imaging for too long. So, because wow, looks great through the Sea Star.
And looks amazing through the DSLR.
So I will say one more time, we are getting more towards the end of our show tonight. So if you do have any follow-up questions for us, anything you're wondering about the comet tonight, how you can view it, or any other astronomy questions you've been itching to ask someone, you are welcome to ask whenever you would like.
It's going to be a while before you'll wipe the smile off my face, that's for sure. This is so cool.
Oh wow, it really does look great. I mean, you can pretty much see tail all the way to the top of the image
Absolutely,
here. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not sure we even really caught the entire thing in there.
I'm not sure. I wonder, should I move the camera up a little
You
bit?
can try and see if you can catch a little bit more, but it's definitely getting dimmer up there at the top. Oh, thank you. Yes, I sorry if you guys have been seeing all of our notifications that we're getting from the Sea Stars. It's taking stack failed. That's okay. Thank you for letting me know. I do appreciate it. You'll see down at the bottom where we have this little red square, and it's counting down 10 seconds constantly on this little timer, right? So it is taking a bunch of 10-second exposures, and it is stacking those together. So adding these different pictures together.
But the fact that
Although
it's saying...
I will think, I'm going to stop it here.
Yeah.
The reason it is failing is because this comet moves a lot. Look at how different of a location it is in now
Yeah.
from when we started.
You need to
I could
pan down
jog it a little bit, I think.
Yeah. And while you're doing that, here I move the
I'm trying to do this really slow. I'm scared I'm going to mess it up.
I move the camera.
It's actually moving in the right direction.
I move the camera up just a little bit.
Yeah, let's see how much of the tail we can really catch. Wow, that is just remarkable, huh?
And
I want to pull up our final comet images from the night here. Oh, I would really love for this to be flipped here. Taking one last exposure there, Michelle. Long
This
exposure
is-
with the DSLR.
so cool.
Very nice. There we go. So this will give a really nice good view. I'll wait for that DSLR one to come in. There's our last we'll see star image that we took with just a couple seconds of, just a couple exposures there together.
So I brightened up. I increased the ISO. So yeah.
Get it a little brighter. You
Just
can
a
definitely
little
tell that
brighter.
the background sky is a little brighter.
Yeah.
Thank you guys in the chat for helping troubleshoot tonight. I do appreciate the troubleshooting comments. There's a lot of screens over here, so it is hard to catch all the notifications.
Yeah.
So.
And you're getting the audio from the Sea Star, so we have to. I guess next time we'll turn that off.
Oh,
Sorry,
I don't know.
guys.
I don't know if any chatter from the Sea Star came through. No, you're okay.
Okay.
Good. Another great question.
Ooh.
Is this comet traveling within the plane of the solar system, or is it slicing through? Give me a second. I gotta find my slide. I got one just for you, though. Here we go. It is slicing through. I like your term there. Right, so the plane of the solar system, referring to this kind of flat, generally flat plane that all of the planets orbit around the sun on. And you can see those orbits here, right? The comet is not really very flat with that plane. No, it's almost perpendicular. So the comets are all over the place. The Oort cloud, where this came from, is pretty much just a huge sphere around the outer solar system that covers, pretty much all of we suspect that there are comets in all directions, moving all sorts of different ways. So very separate from the traditional plane of the solar system that you might imagine. Funny, the word plane made me think back to a few nights ago when I was out trying to catch this right around sunset, and I saw a lot of trails left behind by planes that tricked me like at least 5 to 10 times, where I was like staring at them with binoculars for so long to see if it was the comet or not.
Yep.
It's a lot
Contrails.
easier now that it's just
contrails.
contrails. That's all I spotted. And this afternoon sun really bounces off of them and makes them very bright. And I was getting tricked so many times. It's nice that it's a little further from the sun now, so that we can get darker skies around it. It really brightens up that view.
So if anyone's coming down to the planetarium tomorrow, this was a nice little learning experience for us as well, because this is our first time actually seeing this thing with
the
our
dang
own eyes.
thing, yeah.
We may have to start our viewing of the comet more like 7 o'clock.
Well, that's okay. I said 7 o'clock. I said 7 o'clock. I was hesitant to catch it before then.
I think we
so.
published 6:45, but give us a little leeway on when we can
7
actually
o'clock's
see it in the sky.
More doable, I think. Okay, another question that we had coming through is the meteor shower going to be visible in New York City with the full moon? I would say meteor showers in general from New York City are probably going to be pretty tough. And especially with a full moon, that will make it a little more difficult.
Right. So I believe they may be talking about the
Can't remember which one this
Orionid meteor shower. It peaks on the 21st, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're talking about the Orionid meteor peaks on October 21st, the early morning of the 21st. Not expecting it to be a particularly prolific meteor shower.
So I would say, if you're going to go for a meteor shower in the city with the moon out, I would probably say that you should stick to like a couple of the really big ones, things like the Perseids, the Geminids, that are known to produce a lot of meteors, and frequently a lot more that will be a little brighter. One like this, it's going to be a lot tougher to spot it from New York City, if I'm going to be totally honest.
But
and I'd be surprised if you caught them from right there.
extra points for excellent use of emojis.
That is true. I like your comet emoji use, your full moon one.
Yeah.
And if you go on the 21st, it'll be a little bit, it might be really darn close to full moon, actually.
The full moon is tomorrow night, 17th.
Yeah.
Or night.
Thursday
17th.
night, yes.
Yeah.
So 21st, pretty close.
So we're gonna be losing the comet behind that house in just a bit, but I just took this picture.
Yep. Last one to finish us off for the night. You guys have had great questions tonight, so if you do have any last ones that you think of while we're here, let me know. Let me know. I'm excited to hear them. Sorry I haven't looked you guys in the eyes since we got the feedback comment. I've just been looking over here
trying
off to the
to.
side, totally not paying attention. No, I'm paying attention,
The
of
control
course.
screen is over here. My computer is here with the camera. This screen runs the slides.
Oh,
This
nice.
one runs the
I can't.
DSLR. This one we're keeping track of any staff messages. We've got Dylan over here checking to make sure that nothing's going wrong. We've got my husband over here helping to open the door every now and then. And he's keeping an eye on the cats to make sure that they don't make an appearance in the show. Welcome to the chaos that is Sky Observer's Hangout.
It's
But
fun doing a show in your house, Michelle.
it's
very
fun,
different. You know?
controlled chaos. So this has been a blast.
Well, yeah,
so,
my eyes have been glued to any comet pictures since we got inside. But they're used to seeing me leaning off camera, looking in with my eyes squinted, trying to see details. So
I'm gonna take one more while we
yeah, I
can.
want to bring it back to this sea star image too, where we really get so much detail there.
Yep.
Right,
So
Tacoma.
this picture
Oh,
was
man.
taken 6 minutes ago. So this is almost live.
Yeah, this one's a little bit older, but I
took
gave our
this
sea star a
one-
break for a second.
And I took this one about 10 seconds
Live
ago.
now from right out that door.
Right outside the
Yep.
door, which you can't see, but trust me, there's a door there. But you can see,
Wow.
this is just the preview image so that you can see the tail
Remarkable.
is just incredibly extensive.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see all the stars that become visible in a 15-second long picture.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Pretty cool.
Beautiful views tonight. What a blast it's been. Especially since we've gotten the coveted view. I was unsure if we would pull it off today because the weather was horrible earlier,
admit,
honestly. So we got really lucky.
I was nervous.
That the weather cleared.
nervous.
We haven't had any practice time for this because it's just been cloudy every day
Exactly.
for the last week.
Now we have pictures.
And man, yeah, it's gone so great today. So that's what I've been most excited about. I'm excited that all of you have been here to
Yeah.
share that with us as well.
Totally.
If you have enjoyed your views of the comet tonight, of our commentary that we've been providing. Oh, I didn't plan that one out. I'm proud of that one.
Are you serious?
That was a good one. Fun. Hit subscribe down below. Subscribe to the channel. You'll get updates on all of our future live streams. We do this about all kinds of astronomy topics. You'll also see all of the other content that comes out on our channels from lots of our wonderful coworkers as well. If you want to catch us live again in the future, you can actually catch me live really soon doing a little bit more comet observing as well as a bunch of other astronomy observing, some activities, talking with some amateur and professional astronomers. I will be down at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale for their annual star party and hosting an online show as well. That will not be on the YouTube's channel, but rather on the Solar Steam.
It won't be on the Adler's channel.
Oh, sorry. It will not be on the Adler's YouTube channel. It will be on the Solar Steam channel, so you can catch me there from 6 to 9 p.m. Central Time. But if not, we would love to see you on future episodes of Sky Observers Hangout as well. We've got tons coming up from things like the lunar eclipse all the way.
By the way, I just checked the weather for you for
I
Saturday.
think it's going to be really nice on
It's gonna
Saturday.
be
I know. We're going to
good.
get a really good view of this.
And he's going to be under a darker sky.
It will be darker out there, so my views might be even better. They think their views are good here.
Yep.
Wait until you see my Carbondale views. But yes, for future episodes of Sky Observers Hangout, you can find us here on the Adler's YouTube in December, talking all things Jupiter and the Europa Clipper.
They want to see the cats.
That's your call. They're not my cats.
Do we have one?
I don't know if there's any cats close by right now.
Oh,
We've
got
been
one.
intentionally keeping them a little
on.
distant from here so that they didn't accidentally end the stream in advance, but
Here's
almost in view. Oh, here. Sorry. Let me switch to full cat view here. There you go. There's the cat you were looking for.
There's Muley Lewis. He's really thrilled. There's that one.
But yes, you can catch us on the Adler's YouTube channel for a show all about observing Jupiter and learning about the Europa Clipper mission, even featuring a guest from that worked on the mission itself.
Exactly, and we can't wait for that. We're hoping that we can do that one on a night where you can see Jupiter live through
That
the
is our
big
plan,
telescope.
yes, of course.
I'm looking around for another cat to show you guys.
Yeah, right.
Unfortunately, of course, they've been around for the last hour and a half, and now they disappeared. But you got to see one, so there you go.
And then looking even further, next March we will also be doing a lunar eclipse live, also down in southern Illinois as well. So
Yep.
look forward to here with public observers, and of course always exciting things to look forward to on the Adler's YouTube channel. Episode of Wow Signal yet, and you need more comet stuff. That is my favorite episode yet. It is absolutely hilarious. Not Scheller in it. It's the other segments that are extra funny, but we do happen to be in it as well. So check that out. There's lots of stuff to see on our channels.
And
other than that,
I just more pictures.
ooh, we'll
so I'm
see. It
just
might be
waiting.
starting to disappear behind now.
I'm just waiting for
One last view of
you.
Sea Star image of the comet tonight.
In a second. And that's just such a cool
It's
picture.
been such a lovely view
And
tonight.
I'm
I can't
gonna-
believe how well it worked
If I
out.
get this one more time, come on, camera. Of course. Oh wait, it's busy, so it's probably.
There we go.
almost,
Oh,
isn't it?
and we were just
Oh,
perfectly
there you
on
go.
time. There the
Almost
comet
right behind my house.
goes. This kind of relates to if there's any correlation between comets and historical events. It might look like the comet is crashing into the garage here. It is not. So, sometimes people might see it and, it might be a surprise to people earlier on in history when we weren't able to predict these things so well. So maybe there could have been, some connections that people were making in their heads during those times, saying, wow, I saw this really significant thing happen in history, or I guess not in history at that point, in current events, right? I also happened to see this large comet in the sky.
Yep.
Not a physical connection between the two, so just as
Correct.
here, the comet will not crash into the garage, but we will shortly lose view of it behind that building.
One actually particularly interesting version of saw it in the sky. Is there something to correlate on the ground? If you've ever seen images of the Bayeux Tapestry, which is in France, and it depicts the invasion of England by William the Conqueror, it depicts Halley's Comet, what would then later become named Halley's Comet, it's this portent of doom, except for one thing. The battles were already done by the time the comet actually was visible, so they kind of fudged it a bit in the Bayeux Tapestry. Don't know if that was on purpose to fit the storyline, or if they just remembered the date wrong. I'm not sure which one that is.
Yeah, and the
So-
calendars weren't so specific back then,
Yeah,
at least.
exactly.
I can't
So-
imagine I would have been keeping as close track as we do these days.
Oh
so.
well. But we're glad you're all with us here in the present, and
Yes, exactly.
we really appreciate it. Thanks so much, everybody.
Yes.
Hope you had a great time with Sky Observers Hangout. I think we are going to end for tonight. Y'all done?
Yes, this has been wonderful
This has been
tonight.
great.
Thanks so much for joining us. We'll leave you with this last commentary view for just a moment, but we are going to sign off. Thanks for joining. Colleen will be leaving a note down below, or a message in the chat about filling out a feedback survey for us and how you enjoyed the show.